Mai, a determined young woman working as a maid in the grand estate of billionaire tycoon Richard Thorne. Every day she cleans sparkling marble floors and dusts priceless antiques, watching the lavish life from the sidelines. But for Mai, it's just a job, until one fateful afternoon when everything she thought she knew about herself comes crashing down. While dusting a hidden corner of Richard's private study, Mai stumbles upon a family photo tucked away in an ornate drawer. Her eyes widen as she spots a familiar face, a younger version of her late mother standing next to Richard Thorne himself. Confused and shocked, Mai's heart pounds with a single, overwhelming thought. Is the man she's been serving actually her grandfather? What will Mai do with this life-changing discovery? Will she confront the powerful billionaire or keep the truth hidden in the shadows? One thing's for sure, this revelation is just the beginning of a journey filled with secrets and unexpected twists. Stick around to find out what happens. On a deep, winter morning, the cold wind outside was howling like a ferocious beast, constantly pounding on the thick glass windows of the Thorne estate. Inside the luxurious study, a warm stove emitted a faint heat, forming a sharp contrast to the ice and snow outside. The faint fragrance of polished wood filled the air, lingering in every inch of the space. Mai, dressed in a simple maid's uniform, with a slender figure yet exuding tenacity, was carefully wiping the shiny mahogany desk with a soft rag. Her eyes involuntarily swept over the delicate carvings on the desk. Those intricate patterns seemed to tell the glory and mystery of the wealthy family. All this luxury was worlds apart from the life she had led in the past 20-odd years. In her memory, her childhood was spent in a small, dimly lit rental house, and the only furniture in the house was a few tattered tables and chairs. Now, she had been a maid in the Thorne estate for 2 years, and the rooms she cleaned were much larger than her entire former home. Every corner of the estate exuded wealth and status, but all of this had once been a distant dream to her. The estate owner, the billionaire Richard Thorne, was a mysterious figure who could turn the business world upside down. He always had an indifferent expression, and his eyes were filled with a sense of alienation that kept people at a distance. On weekdays, he seldom returned home. Even when he did, he was always in a hurry, with an aura that made people dare not approach him. Mai never questioned her own identity. In her opinion, she was just here to work and make a living. The feuds and emotions of the wealthy family had nothing to do with her, and she didn't have the time to daydream. However, the gears of fate began to turn quietly on that seemingly ordinary morning. When Mai was cleaning the desk, her hand accidentally touched a drawer that wasn't fully closed. Her fingers seemed to be electrocuted and stopped instantly. A strong sense of curiosity welled up in her heart. This curiosity was like a tidal wave, completely awakening the longing deep within her. She subconsciously looked around. The huge study was empty, and only the wall clock was ticking, as if counting down for her adventurous act. A voice in her heart was whispering to her, "Mind your own business and finish the work quickly and leave here." But a stronger force drove her to continue. Her heart was pounding wildly, and her hands were trembling slightly as she slowly opened the drawer. Inside the drawer, there was a neatly stacked pile of documents, and on the top was a yellowed photo. Mai's breath caught in her throat, and time seemed to freeze at that moment. Although the photo was old, it was very clear. The people in the photo seemed to be endowed with a special magic by the years. Standing beside the young Richard Thorne was a woman whom I recognized at a glance, her mother. The smile on her mother's face was something Mai hadn't seen since childhood. In that smile, there was the vitality of youth, the longing for the future, and a kind of happiness that Mai had never seen in her mother's later life. Mai's hands trembled even more severely. She gently stroked the photo, and the similarities between them were obvious. Her mother's mysterious stories about a man who abandoned his family for wealth instantly flooded into her mind. Pictures of her mother telling the past with a sad face under the dim light kept emerging in her mind. Could all this be true? Is Richard Thorne really the ghost who only existed in the stories? Mai kept asking herself in her heart. Just then, footsteps came from the corridor. The sound was getting closer and closer, and each step seemed to be stepping on Mai's heart. Mai's heart tightened suddenly, and she hurriedly stuffed the photo back into the drawer, her mind full of questions. The door opened, and Richard Thorne himself stood at the door. His sharp blue eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Mai, as if examining an unexpected guest who had intruded into his private territory. "Miss Liu," he said coldly, his voice devoid of any warmth, "what are you doing here?" Mai's throat instantly went dry. For the first time in her life, she didn't know how to answer. Her instincts told her to keep quiet, but anger and confusion were like surging waves, impossible to suppress. "Who is this?" she blurted out, holding up the photo at the same time, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. Thorne's face darkened, and a different emotion, guilt, flashed in his eyes. He took a slow step forward, each step extremely heavy, as if carrying the heavy shackles of the years. "Where did you find this?" His voice was low, with a hint of imperceptible nervousness. "In your drawer," Mai admitted, her voice shaking. "Why is my mother in this photo with you?" Silence fell between them, and the air seemed to become thick and oppressive, making it hard to breathe. Thorne's gaze softened, and he let out a long sigh, which seemed to carry years of regret and helplessness. "Your mother was my daughter," he said softly, his voice a little choked. He paused, as if trying to calm his emotions. "I made a mistake." Mai felt as if the world was spinning. This man who controlled power, wealth, and respect was not just her employer. He was actually her grandfather. Thousands of emotions surged in her heart. Anger, disbelief, a sense of betrayal, and a strange longing for the family she had never known. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, her eyes glistening with tears. "Why didn't you come to find us? Do you know what kind of life my mother and I have lived all these years?" Thorne's shoulders slumped under the weight of years of regret, and his eyes were full of self-blame. "I was a fool. Pride and ambition blinded me, making me ignore what was truly important. I thought wealth and status could bring happiness to my family, but I never expected to lose the most precious family affection." He paused, his voice full of emotion. "But it's not too late, if you're willing to give me a chance to make amends." Just as Mai's heart began to waver, the study door was suddenly pushed open with a bang. A woman dressed flamboyantly and with sharp eyes strode in. She was wearing a gorgeous suit and a string of valuable pearl necklaces around her neck. She was Richard Thorne's daughter-in-law, and also Mai's mother's half-brother's wife, Alicia. "Look at what's going on here," Alicia said sarcastically, her voice like sharp fingernails scratching glass. "A little maid is actually questioning the master here." Richard's face darkened, and he said unhappily, "Alicia, this has nothing to do with you. You go out first." Alicia didn't think so. She sneered. "How can it have nothing to do with me? Who knows what this girl of unknown origin is up to? Maybe she just wants to climb the social ladder and extort money from our Thorne family. I've seen too many such poor people." When Mai heard this, the anger in her heart flared up. "Don't slander me. I just want to find out the truth. I have the right to know my background." Alicia pressed on. "The truth? I think you have ulterior motives. It's not your turn to run wild in this estate. Look at your own identity and don't have those unrealistic dreams." As she spoke, she looked at Mai provocatively, as if deliberately trying to her. Richard wanted to stop Alicia, but was blocked by her words. "Dad, don't be fooled by her. Such people just want to use you to achieve their own goals." Alicia became more and more excited, and her makeup seemed a bit distorted because of anger. Alicia continued to taunt Mai in a sarcastic way, trying to drive her away from this place where the truth had just been revealed. "Get out of here quickly and don't make a fool of yourself. Our Thorne family is not a place you can just come in and out of." But Mai was not someone who could be easily intimidated. She straightened her back and retorted fearlessly, "Don't think you can drive me away like this. I will definitely find out everything. No one can stop me. You wait. I will make you pay for what you did today." Mai secretly vowed that she must seek justice for herself and her mother in this hostile wealthy family and make those who tried to stop her, especially Alicia who targeted her everywhere, get their due punishment. Seeing Mai's tough attitude, Alicia had no choice for a while. She could only turn around angrily and leave. And before leaving, she didn't forget to leave a harsh word. "You wait for me. You'll have a hard time. I won't let you succeed." Mai took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. She looked at Richard. At this time, he looked extremely tired, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. His eyes were full of helplessness and guilt, as if he was deeply blaming himself for his past mistakes. "Grandpa," Mai called him this for the first time, her voice carrying a complex emotion. "Since you want to make amends, then tell me everything. I want to know my mother's past and what has happened all these years." Richard nodded and slowly sat down on the chair, starting to tell the long, buried past. It turned out that Mai's mother was born to Richard and his first wife, while Alicia's husband was the child of Richard and his second wife. In those days, Mai's mother fell in love with an ordinary man. Although that man had no wealth or status, he had a sincere and kind heart. Richard firmly opposed their being together. He believed that a mismatched marriage would ruin his daughter's life and plunge her into endless pain. The two had a big quarrel. Mai's mother left home in a fit of anger and married that man, cutting off contact with her family ever since. Richard thought his daughter would come to her senses and realize her mistake in the hardships of life, but he never expected that she would live a very happy life. That ordinary man gave Mai's mother a warm home with his love, until one day, when Richard learned the news of his daughter's death from illness, his heart was filled with remorse. He realized that his stubbornness and prejudice had made him lose the most precious thing. He sent people to search everywhere for Mai's whereabouts, but he never found her. Over the years, he had been living in guilt and self-blame. Countless nights, he tossed and turned in memories, regretting his decision back then. Listening to Richard's story, Mai felt mixed emotions. She was sad for her mother's experience and angry at Richard's actions. She remembered that on her mother's sickbed, her mother still couldn't forget the family that had abandoned them, with longing and helplessness in her eyes. But looking at the weather-beaten old man in front of her, she felt a bit of pity. His hair had turned grey, his face was covered with wrinkles, and his former high-spiritedness had long since disappeared. "Grandpa, I can forgive you, but I hope you can do one thing for me," Mai said, her eyes firm. "What is it? You say it. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help you," Richard said quickly, his eyes full of anticipation. "I want Alicia to apologize to me for what she did today. She can't insult me and my mother like this," Mai said firmly, her fists clenched tightly, as if declaring her determination to the world. Richard frowned, looking a bit frustrated. "Alicia's temper. I'm afraid it's not easy. She has always been very willful and spoiled. I don't care. She must apologize. Otherwise, I will never truly forgive you. This is my only request." Mai's attitude was resolute, without the slightest room for compromise. Richard nodded helplessly. "Okay, I'll try. I'll have a good talk with her." In the following days, Mai's life in the estate didn't become easier because of her relationship with Richard. Alicia made things difficult for her everywhere and tormented her even more severely. Every day, Mai had to face Alicia's various unreasonable demands. Either she deliberately found fault with her and made her repeat the work she had already completed, or she spoke ill of her in front of other servants, trying to isolate her. Once, Alicia deliberately damaged her famous brand bag and then framed Mai for it, demanding that she compensate. Mai knew it was Alicia's conspiracy, but she didn't argue. She just endured it all silently. She knew that it wasn't time to fight back yet. She had to wait for a suitable opportunity to let Alicia be completely exposed. But Mai endured it all. She knew that this was just the calm before the storm. She secretly collected evidence of Alicia's crimes every day and paid attention to her every move. She believed that one day, she would make Alicia pay for what she had done. Finally, after Richard's repeated persuasion, Alicia reluctantly agreed to apologize to Mai. But her apology was insincere and perfunctory. "Okay, I admit I was wrong. That's it. Don't push your luck." Her tone was full of disdain and impatience. Mai naturally wouldn't let it go so easily. She knew that Alicia would never give up and would definitely make another move. What she had to do was to make Alicia completely despair. One day, Mai accidentally overheard Alicia talking on the phone with her best friend in the garden. It turned out that she was planning how to drive Mai out of the estate and also intended to frame her and make her bear the crime of theft. Mai sneered in her heart. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. She decided to play along and let Alicia reap what she had sown. Mai deliberately showed flaws in front of Alicia, pretending to be careless, making Alicia think she had an opportunity. Alicia really took the bait. She thought Mai had let down her guard and it was time to take action. She secretly put some valuable items in Mai's room and then called the police, saying that something had been stolen from the estate. The police soon arrived at the estate and searched everyone's rooms. When those stolen items were found in Mai's room, Alicia laughed triumphantly. "See, I told you she was no good. She's just a thief. Such people should be put in jail." Her face was beaming with the joy of victory, as if announcing her victory to the whole world. However, Mai was calm and unhurried. She took out the recording pen she had prepared in advance, which clearly recorded the conversation between Alicia and her best friend. After listening, the police's expressions became very serious, and they took Alicia back to the police station. In the face of the evidence, Alicia couldn't deny it and could only admit her crime. After learning about this, Richard greatly admired Mai's wisdom and courage. He also realized that he couldn't let Alicia mess around like this anymore, otherwise the whole family would be ruined by her. So, he decided to hold a family meeting to redistribute the family property and at the same time officially make Mai a member of the Thorne family. At the family meeting, Alicia's husband tried to plead for her. "Dad, for the sake of our marriage, give her another chance. She knows she's wrong." His eyes were full of pleading. But Richard didn't waver. The mistake she made must be paid for. The family can't be shamed because of her. His voice was firm and unwavering. He announced that Alicia would be deprived of her right to inherit the family property because of her suspicion of framing others. And Mai would receive a part of the property to make up for the grievances she and her mother had suffered over the years. When Alicia learned this news, she completely collapsed. She ran to Mai and begged her bitterly, "Mai, I was wrong. Please forgive me this time. I'll never dare again." Her face was covered with tears, and her former arrogance and insolence had long since disappeared. But Mai was unmoved. She said coldly, "You brought this on yourself. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. I will never forget the insults you gave me and my mother." After this incident, Mai established a firm foothold in the Thorne family. She won everyone's respect with her wisdom and courage. The servants who had once looked down on her now treated her with new respect. And Richard finally understood that family affection was far more important than wealth and power. He began to try his best to make up for his past mistakes and build a warm home with Mai. From then on, Mai's life changed dramatically. She was no longer the little maid who was looked down upon, but became an important member of the wealthy family. Her experience proved that even if one was born ordinary, as long as one had courage and determination, one could definitely change one's fate. And those who had once hurt her had all received their due punishment. In this wealthy, family world full of intrigue and betrayal, Mai, with her wisdom and strength, wrote her own legendary story. Her story also became a history that would always be remembered in the Thorne family, inspiring generations of people to bravely pursue their own happiness and justice.